Hi everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Tara Lee and I'm the account manager here at Charity Digital and your host for today. Whilst we're waiting for others to join, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box and let us know where you're joining from today. So firstly, I'll get started with a quick introduction to Charity Digital. We're a registered UK charity and our mission is to help other charities increase their impact through being more digital. We do this through two main activities. The first of which is providing access to software products that charities need at dramatically reduced prices. And the second is by publishing content, articles, podcasts, videos, etc., as well as running webinars and events like today's webinar to educate charity professionals and volunteers on how to make better use of digital tools and technologies. We're proud to say that we have helped over 1 million charity professionals to learn about digital transformation and to improve their digital skills through our content website, events and training programs. And we have enabled over 77,000 charities to save in excess of £284 million on technology investments. So today's webinar is sponsored by Esri UK, and we will be discussing how digital mapping tools can drive meaningful change. The session will share details of why charities are using digital mapping tools and related capabilities, the difference this technology is making to them, and how Esri UK, the world-leading supplier of digital mapping technology, can help support with getting up and running through their non-profit programme. Now, just before handing over to Hattie from Esri UK, I just want to share a few house rules and pointers for today's session. The session is being recorded and will be uploaded to watch on demand within a week's time. The slides and other resources will be made available to you by the end of the day, so please don't worry at all if you've missed anything. Closed captions are available for today's session. To enable these, in the bottom of the Zoom window, please click the up arrow button next to closed caption and then show subtitle. During the webinar, please do ask lots of questions through the Q&A section on Zoom for our panelists to address at the end of the presentation. And feel free to share any comments and experiences or top tips you may have in the chat section. And there is, if there is a particular Q&A question that you see and that you would like to see answered, please do use the upvote function to make sure that this one is answered first. And finally, if you encounter any sound and image issues, please do again let us know in the chat section and we'll do our very best to make sure that we get the session back to normal as soon as we can. So without further ado, we're going to start with a quick poll, which should now appear at the bottom of your screen. And we would really, really appreciate it if you could take the time to answer that. And without further ado, I'll hand over to Hattie.
Good afternoon, and thank you there, Tara. Welcome all to this webinar, which we are calling A Guide to Digital Mapping Tools. I'd like to start by introducing our lineup of speakers, and rather than Esri UK tell you how you can use digital mapping tools, we thought what better way than for you to hear from your peers in the nonprofit sector. So you've already heard from your host, Tara, at Charity Digital, but my name is Hattie Gwilt, and I head up the nonprofit programme at Esri UK. Chelsea is the GIS and remote sensing technical specialist at Fauna and Flora. Oliver is the senior data manager at the Scouts Association and is joined by interpreter Taz. Alex is the senior research associate for spatial analytics at Sightsavers, and Annika is a GIS analyst at the Rivers Trust. Now, onto our agenda for today. I'll start by introducing our software company. I'll then explain the importance of maps to nonprofit missions. Then I'll hand over to our speakers, who will each give a 10-minute presentation on how they're using maps. Then to wrap up, we'll give you 3 key takeaways and move into that live Q&A. So moving on, who are Esri UK? Well, we're a software company that sell our mapping software to all kinds of sectors, but we have a conscience. Esri was founded on the vision that geographic thinking and digital mapping can help design a better world. And with this ethos in mind, we support many, many initiatives and programs to help certain sectors get their hands on these industry-leading tools. So if I hone in on the nonprofit program, the channel that I manage, know that if you are accepted onto this, your charity could be getting our software at up to 99% discount. So please do scan the QR code on the screen with your phones, and you can read up more on the program. But let's move on to the importance of maps, down to the crux of it. Why are they important? Well, everything happens somewhere. It is said about 80% of the world's data includes some kind of spatial aspect. Maps are more than diagrams that just simply help us navigate from point A to point B. They are windows into information that allows you to explore the world, visualize data, see trends, and help you ultimately make those more informed decisions. So maps spark curiosity, provide insight, spur people into action, and really help you build those solutions towards hopefully a more sustainable future. I now want us to hear from our speakers. And first up, we have Chelsea from Fauna and Flora, who is going to talk to us about using digital mapping tools to protect species such as the critically endangered Calvi gibbon and communicate their cause to stakeholders. So I'll just let Chelsea take the reins with the screen share. Might need to unmute yourself, Chelsea.
Sorry, couldn't find the button there. Hi all. Hi, I am Chelsea. I'm with Fauna and Flora, and today I'm going to talk to you about communicating with story maps and showcasing our conservation impact with interactive material. But first, let me just introduce you to Fauna and Flora. Fauna and Flora is the world's oldest conservation NGO. We've been working for over a century to protect the diversity of life on Earth. Our focus is on ensuring the survival of species and habitat for the planet and its people. We only work where we have been invited to work, supporting, sustaining, and strengthening local nature conservation action around the world to provide direct support to people and species on the front line of the biodiversity crisis. We work closely with local conservation partners to protect habitats, revive oceans, stop extinctions, stop the illegal wildlife trade, combat climate change, and much more. In the past year, I have been involved in projects ranging from identifying restoration sites for the critically endangered Calvi gibbon, designing a new protected marine management area off the coast of St. Lucia, assessing vegetation health following restoration actions, and worked alongside corporates to improve and support their nature strategies. The work we do is wide-ranging across over 40 countries. It's an exciting place to work, with every project having an impact on some of the world's most interesting and at-risk species and habitats. A little bit on how we work. We work alongside partners and local communities to develop conservation projects. Our projects are often funded by large donors such as USAID, DEFRA, Arcadia, and the Blue Action Fund, which require a lot of reporting. So alongside our commitment to working closely with local partners and communities, we have a lot of external communication needs. Traditionally, teams have relied on PowerPoint slides, Word documents, and PDFs to communicate our work. However, these, especially Word documents and PDF reports, feel quite dry and are not very engaging and have a small reach when shared online. It has been hard as an organisation working with colleagues with different skill sets and across different technical backgrounds to find a format that can be used by everyone and can be worked on collaboratively by teams in the UK and simultaneously with teams in countries worldwide. Add in that conservation is inherently spatial, understanding the where and why underpins our work and the understanding of the natural world. Having static maps and reports goes some way to helping bring in the spatial element, but this can be limited when working with remote communities where spatial literacy is low. This is a specific communication requirement for my team, the conservation technology team, which helps our in-country staff and partners to collect, analyse and communicate data. Our team focuses on providing the most appropriate technological solutions from basic mapping to complex analyses, but our raw outputs often require technical knowledge to interpret. Maps are essential to what we do and allow others to understand the results of our work. Our impact as data analysts is directly linked to our ability to communicate our results, especially to non-technical audiences. Visualizing our analysis is what makes it impactful and accessible to decision makers and implementers. ArcGIS's powerful tools allow us to produce high-quality, publication-ready maps, alongside engaging interactive online maps to reach every audience we have. The interactivity helps break down barriers to understanding to ensure our work is understood by all who need it. Communicating our work is fundamental to what we do, but so much time is taken up with analysis, data collection, and stakeholder engagement. We also work across multiple different teams with varying tech skill levels, so we therefore need a communication tool that is quick, easy, and accessible. Because of that, Esri's story maps are an incredible tool for us. The easy drag and drop functionality and ability to work collaboratively allows us to include in-country teams and partners in our storytelling to gain a richer and more cohesive story, and allows us to amplify local voices. In the video here, I pulled together very quickly the beginning of a story map that makes use of personalized themes, which we have made accessible to our whole organization using our specific branding. This allows our story maps to have a cohesive feel across the organization. The dynamic and immersive storytelling facilitated by story maps has helped us clarify complex topics and mixed media approach and engages our wide variety of audiences. Its flexible options in story building allow us to change the narrative and approach for each case study. We can develop spatial focused content with engaging interactive maps, image and video focused stories of rich content that engages well with communities, or focuses on graph and results reporting, which work well with the impact reports or sharing impact with donors. Last year, we submitted one of our story maps, The Guardians of Calviate Gibbons, to Esri's Story Maps competition. We're very happy to be listed as a runner-up. This story map was initially developed by Deep Cho, an intern in our Vietnam team. Once she left, ownership was easily transferred to a member of the Vietnam team, where they made some updates, and I also helped to fine-tune and add in maps to this final version of the story map that you can see here. It tells the story of the critically endangered Calviate gibbon and all the incredible work the team are doing to protect this rare primate. The story map has been used to help increase awareness of the project and the work that the team is carrying out. It's not just the conservation technology team making story maps of fauna and flora. Our illegal wildlife training team, Law, worked collaboratively to develop a story map on illegal wildlife trade prevention and patrolling to use in community workshops. Law found the story maps a powerful tool in engaging with the local community. I really like this quote from her. Apologies, it's quite long, but I think it really encapsulates why story maps are so useful to us at Fauna and Flora. She says, "We have been wrestling with how to present all of this information so it's accessible to build on for practical conservation efforts, rather than languishing in dust-gathering reports." Enters ArcGIS Story Map, which we have recently used to present crime script data and provide a very visual step-by-step account of commercial snaring and gun hunting in this area. Field teams involved in patrols and government partners in PUMAT seem to engage more actively with the crime scripting information when it is displayed on maps and not just presented as a narrative. I'm noticing there are more questions and remarks following presentations or during workshops involving the maps. I think this really highlights how important it is and how useful it is for story maps to get communities engaged and working and have the input into the work that we're doing. It's not just positive feedback from other teams and communities we've received. Our teams have also had really positive feedback for story maps from donors appreciating a novel way of reporting conservation success. The Blue Action Fund most recently loved our story map so much they shared it via their LinkedIn. We've also had requests from the South Sudan team to develop a story map outlining the progress the team has made as a result of donations from a particular donor. The team want to demonstrate to donor that whilst progress may seem slow, The work carried out so far is having a big impact. A story that is much more easily told with pictures, interactive maps, and videos rather than static bullet points in a report. We love story maps at Fauna and Flora and are excited to see how we can continue using them to communicate our work and boost impact. So that being said, I just want to finish off by saying a couple of projects that our team is currently working on, including supporting the designation and design of marine protected areas in Sao Tome and Principe and St. Lucia, identifying mining sites in Maipo National Park in the Democratic Republic of Congo, identifying suitable sites for restoration to increase the movement of cowbeard gibbons, and modelling connectivity in game reserves in South Sudan. All of these projects will involve communication to local partners, communities, and donors. So hopefully this year we'll be releasing a lot more story maps. Thank you for your time.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Chelsea. Next up, we have Oliver from the Scouts Association, who is going to talk to us about using digital mapping tools to understand the communities that the Scout groups serve. So Oliver, over to you.
Right. Good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'll just introduce myself again. I'm Oliver, and as Hattie mentioned earlier, I'm speaking to a sign language interpreter, Taz, who is providing the voiceover, so hence the female voiceover. So I'm the Senior Data Manager for the Scout Association, and I'm based in gloomy Gilwell Park, which is in Epping Forest. Today, I'm going to be talking about our journey with ArcGIS. But first, I just want to talk about the Scouts itself and just explain a bit about what they do. So Scouts is an amazing organisation. We provide activities for young people and adults around the UK. There's every week we provide opportunities for over 500,000 young people. And those activities are things that take place outside of school hours, usually. They're activities that take place in local groups, people go on trips, there are international events. And those opportunities give young people skills such as cooking, practical skills, life skills, the opportunities to earn badges. Everybody thinks about Scouts and badges. But Scouts are supported by over 150,000 adult volunteers, and those volunteers can be regular helpers or they can be occasional helpers. But it's really important that those adults get involved, and that's how we deliver these life skill opportunities to young people. I am part of the digital transformation process that we're currently undergoing at Scouts. And as the data and insight team, we are looking at different tools that we can use to provide the various parts of the organisation with visibility of the data that we collect. There's a big focus at the moment on growth and how we can use the new tools and the new opportunities that are becoming available to make sure that we can provide accessible opportunities for all members of the Scout Association. So I'm going to talk about the journey that we're on in different phases. We started, as quite a few people have, through COVID. We really did feel the impact of the pandemic, with the number of young people dropping by 15% and the number of adult volunteers dropping by about 11%. So it really did have a big impact on the Scout Association. And so part of the way we were thinking about how we can recover from that was looking at the use of digital tools. We also launched a new section called Squirrels. I'm not sure how familiar everybody is with the Scout Association, but we have different sections for various age groups. So we started Squirrels for 3 and 4 year olds. They then move up to Beavers, then Cubs, Scouts, Explorers, and Network. One of the things we identified was that we collect census data for the Scout Association every year. It gives us a snapshot of how many young people are involved, various details about those young people, their ethnicity, various characteristics. And we identified that particularly the ethnicity information, we were disproportionately lower than the the national average. And so we're looking at inclusive growth and how we can grow scouting, but at the same time, make sure that that growth is inclusive. And ArcGIS is one of the ways that we can do that. So we're in an early stage of digital transformation. We have just started using a lot of different tools. We are using Power BI, and that's naturally evolving. And we get demographic data about IMD levels of the population. We're looking at where scout sections are based. Scouts are organised in groups. So you have one group that could have a beaver unit and a cub unit and a scout unit, but maybe they don't have squirrels yet. So we're looking at how we can identify which groups have got gaps in the sections that they can offer. So, and then getting involved and seeing how we can help create those sections and clear some of our waiting lists. ArcGIS is a really useful tool in helping to identify those gaps. And we're using that within our growth and inclusion team. So those are the people that go out around the UK to various counties and engage with those counties and look at, where can we set up new sections, where can we open new groups, what are the priorities. And through the census, we collect information about waiting lists. So we can identify the demand. We can see, where there's a group with not many people on the waiting list, but then there might be another group with a huge waiting list. So we have been using Power BI to make data a bit more visual, but we realized that does have limits. So we wanted to use maps so that we had the opportunity to really see what was going on and where it was happening. So enter ArcGIS. So this is one example of quite a big map that we're developing. And it identifies all of the sections in the UK with the orange dots. And we thought it was useful to have an overlay with the IMDb data that we got from the Office of National Statistics. And it really helps us to identify the growth that could happen in the different IMD areas. IMD area 1 to 3 they're quite deprived areas. And so that's areas that are more open to different types of funding. So it's not just funding related, but also visually, it's quite nice to be able to zoom in to actually look at the different areas and notice actually there's quite a lot of groups in this section, but this section of the map, but there's not as many in that section, and why is that? So with that, we can we've got this IMD data. The light colours are the lower numbers IMD, and the darker numbers are the higher areas. So we can zoom in on the different areas. We can look at, okay, in that group, what is the waiting list like in that group? We can, engage with different parts of the data that we've got. Our communities team is always coming up to us and going, oh, can you also add information about, schools, and can you add information about other things as well? So we're definitely looking at how to expand and how to use ArcGIS more and more. We've only been using it really for the last year, so we are really looking at how we can embed that use and make it more sort of fundamental, and then also how we can get that knowledge out to our volunteers, how we can make that more accessible so that all of the volunteers that we have can use the data that we're collecting to help them with their decision making actually out there on the ground. And as I said, we're looking at how we can import some more external data into that. There's information from education and various other places that would be really useful tools to help our volunteers and to help our community and growth team. So in summary, I think we've seen the success in using the different digital tools, including ArcGIS. The number of young children that have joined Squirrels has grown by 150%. So it's massively successful, and it's the fastest growing section that we have at the moment. With the advent of Squirrels, we're also looking at how we can open different sections around those units where the waiting lists are really long. So it's really helping us to identify the best places to go. And it's helping us to realise that actually these tools are really useful for other areas of the Scout Association. Our growth and communities team are constantly thinking of different ways that they can use it. with our Scout census, we just completed it just a couple of weeks ago, and already we can see that our ethnicity data is much better than it has been previously. So it just shows that the tools that we're using to identify different areas to focus on is really working, and we're looking forward to seeing how this is used more and more in the future. And that's us. So thank you very much for listening.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Oliver. Great insight there. And I'm probably not alone in just thinking that the naming of squirrels is just fantastic for a smaller audience. Okie doke. So we are now going to move on to Alex from Sightsavers, who's going to talk to us about using digital mapping tools in the field to track vaccination rollouts to eliminate eye diseases. So Alex, over to you when you're ready.
Thank you, Ati. I think you can see my slide now. Oh, sorry. So thank you, Ati. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alex Chayou, and I'm a senior GIS researcher associate at Sightsavers. Welcome to today's session, where I will be sharing with you how Sightsavers are using mapping technology to help to eliminate eye disease in Kenya. Sightsavers is an international non-governmental organization founded in 1950 and works in over 30 countries, as you can see on the map, mainly in Africa. There are three main objectives. The first one is to protect sight by treating cataract and refractive errors, help to treat and prevent 5 neglected tropical diseases that cause blindness, and also to campaign for disability rights in the country where we work. Today's topic is about the treatment of the trachoma disease. Trachoma is spread by infected flies or contact with an infected person. If it's left untreated, it causes inward growing eyelashes, resulting in severe pain and potentially blindness. So let me share with you some key figures. We count more than 40 countries where trachoma is a public health problem. There are 125 million of people who are at risk of going blind because of this disease. And this is about 1.9 million of people who are blind or visually impaired because of trachoma. So, like I said, Africa remains the most affected country, the most affected continent, sorry. Every year, so mass drug distribution is organized to deliver treatment to the population. The drug is dispatched by volunteers that are called the community drug distributors. Kajiado County is in the southwest of Kenya. This is located at the south of the capital, Nairobi, and this is at the border with Tanzania. This is a remote area where it's very difficult to access to the population. This county is mainly populated by the Maasai community. There are semi-nomadic population that moving to feed their cattle. And the trachoma disease is endemic in this county. The map illustrates the result of a survey in 2021 that showed the evidence that there was a poor coverage of the treatment distribution and also a high prevalence of the disease in the population surveyed. So in 2022, Sightsavers decided to use the GIS technology at different steps of the project to help the Ministry of Health to monitor in real time the distribution of the treatment. So the first use of the technology is to identify all the potential inhabited area using satellite imagery. They are analyzed using the ArcGIS software. Having all the potential dwelling identified help in estimate the amount of work to dispatch the drug. Then during the distribution, all the drug distributors were equipped with a mobile phone that contains a mobile survey application called Quick Capture. This application is very easy to use during the field activity, and mainly it's required a minimum of training. Each time that a drug distributor reaches a building, a click on the appropriate situation, like for example, the drug was dispatched or the people were absent, the mobile phone records a location. Then we provide an interactive map. This interactive map contains the potential building identified on the satellite imagery, and also all the data collected for each visited building with the other application I was speaking about. So the users are able to track their live location on the interactive map, enabling them to verify if the target location are inhabited. This second application is also used by the supervisors who can monitor remotely the drug dispatching in real time. And finally, after the drug distribution campaign, the data can be visualized in different dashboards. So we run this methodology to follow two drug distribution campaigns in 2022 and 2023. In the first table, the total number of dwellings visited has been increased, meaning that more people receive the treatment. We also improved the total number of points collected in other buildings. This shows that all potential inhabited places were verified and that no one was left behind. In 2022, in the situation of a building that is not a dwelling, the drug distributors did not automatically record the GPS location. So this is why we advise to do this more accurately in 2023. And this explains that there is such an improvement in this category. But this is really key information to evaluate the coverage and the dispatching of the drug. On the second table, 1 or 2 months after the drug distribution, there is surveys that are conducted to sample the effectiveness of the drug distribution, asking to the population if the drug distributors went to their house and to know if they took the drugs. So the result shows a significant increase. Before the use of the technology, so in 2021, the coverage evaluation survey showed 60% of results. And when we started to use the technology, you can see in 2022, we reached 90%, and in 2023, it's almost 94%. So on this slide, I wanted to illustrate the fact that the GIS tool really improved the organization of the drug distributors once they are in the field. For each maps, you have the data collected by the same drug distributors that appear in the same color. Also on the map, the green shape are the potential inhabited places that has been identified on the satellite imagery. It means that at the end of the campaign, all the green shapes should be recovered by a point to illustrate that the distribution was done, or at least that all the places were verified. So the result shows that in 2022, there are two main areas in the, I just extract, of course, an area. And it showed that two places were unvisited. So this is where I put the information M, like mist. And in comparison on the right, there is really those two places were reached in 2023. Also, the treatment was covered by only 3 drug distributors in 2023. And their dispatching area shows that they knew exactly the area where they were responsible for. So in terms of benefits and reflection, I think you understand the added value of the technology. The digital investment in mobile phone, in user licenses really worth the effort on the long term. The digital, specifically the drug distribution coverage is increased thanks to the effectiveness of the decision-making during the real-time monitoring of the distribution. And finally, the technology leads to accelerate the disease elimination and providing a better life opportunity for those affected. So to give you an idea of the next step for this project, we know that the Maasai population are living in a corridor between the northeast of Tanzania and the southwest of Kenya. Because of their mobility, it's important to coordinate the treatment campaign in both countries. This coordination is essential effectively to eliminate the disease and reach the maximum of the population. Being able to map the migratory patterns of the Maasai would additionally help to focus the effort and to adapt the number of drug distributors that need to be deployed at the appropriate location and time of the treatment distribution. And finally, the access to up-to-date and high-resolution satellite imagery is really critical to the efficiency of the process to identify all the potential inhabited places. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm passing over to Ati.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Alex. Yes, okay, so moving on again, we now have Annika, and I can see that you're all lined up there. So Annika, if you're ready to go.
Thank you, Hattie, and hello everyone. My name is Annika and I work at the Rivers Trust as the GIS and digital mapping lead. I'm going to talk to you today about how we've used Esri's digital mapping tools to collect and share citizen science data on one of our projects. So first of all, who are we? The Rivers Trust is an environmental charity, and we're the umbrella body for 65 member trusts across the UK and Ireland, who are all independent organisations of their own. And the Rivers Trust movement is still growing with rapid development on the island of Ireland, and we're also forging a very close relationship now with the Rivers and Fisheries Trust of Scotland. So the Rivers Trust movement exists because a group of passionate people came together to advocate for our rivers, and each of our member trusts carries out fantastic work in their local river catchments and the wider landscape in their local area, all of which involves working very closely with our communities. And recently, our team at the Rivers Trust has been focusing on 4 key priorities. So wherever possible, we want to promote nature-based solutions to environmental problems as an alternative to traditional grey infrastructure. And that's helping us to restore biodiversity and increase climate resilience. We research and expose pollution sources using expert-led advice and information. And we're growing our monitoring programme, working to standardise data at a national scale, including introducing citizen science alongside the professional monitoring, and using digital mapping tools have become really central to that process. And we're going to be using that data and evidence to advocate for our rivers. So we really want to apply pressure on businesses and our government to accelerate action to improve our rivers. So I'm going to run through an example today of one of the projects that I've been working on over the last few years, and that's our work that's addressing plastic pollution. So evidence suggests that up to 80% of marine plastics have come from our rivers. But over the past few decades, data collection has been focused purely on our beaches and the marine environment, with national schemes like the Big British Beach Clean that have been running every year. So there's an evidence gap here, and we don't know what's going on in our river catchments. And there's not enough data to help us tackle those upstream sources of plastic pollution. And it's not for a lack of effort either. Communities are more aware than ever about the issues of plastic pollution. And there's many community groups and many of our local trusts who are regularly running litter pick events to clean up their rivers. But we don't know how much litter is being removed or where from or what types of litter. And so really what's happening is the problem's getting hidden. And despite all of these efforts to clean up our rivers, the litter keeps flowing. So until we address the sources of pollution, the problem will only continue to grow. But we know that data-driven campaigns can directly influence business and government decision-making. So we knew that we needed to work with communities to start collecting the evidence needed to advocate for policy and behaviour change on a much bigger scale. And we also know that when we work with members of the community and engage them in citizen science, it also helps them to drive local action and behaviour change on the ground. And so all of this has led us to develop a project called Preventing Plastic Pollution, which was funded by the EU Interreg programme. And we worked in partnership with 18 other organisations across both England and France to develop a standardised approach to surveying litter in our rivers. But we hit a bit of a problem and we really needed a tool to help us to record and store that data, because working with all of those partners and all of the volunteers and community groups that they were working with became a big challenge. And this is where ArcGIS software comes in. So after starting to collect the data on the project, some of our academic partners set up for us a Microsoft Access database. As I'm sure people are aware, it's a very scientific tool and it's desktop only, which meant that people had to upload their data and send it to one individual who stored it on their own desktop computer. It wasn't very fit for purpose. And so we decided to build a more collaborative solution using the ArcGIS digital mapping tools. And that helped us to engage with all of the organisations. And even more importantly, it brought in the community groups and the volunteers in helping to manage and upload data. And the important thing is that unlike some of the other traditional tools like Microsoft Access or spreadsheets, Esri tools allow us to map the data, which helps us to identify potential sources of pollution. And that really helps us in advocating for change and targeting action on the ground. We also wanted to make sure that we were using something that was user-friendly, especially where we were working with volunteers with different levels of technical proficiency. And ArcGIS software was ideal for that. The tools are all built to be accessible. And even better for us, there was no coding or web developers needed. And we also thought it was important to share the data. And we really want to empower local communities in their own campaign efforts, as well as the national government campaigns. And we wanted researchers to be able to access and use the data in their own research too. So what we've developed and our final solution uses Esri's ArcGIS Hub software. And ArcGIS Hub is an extremely powerful product that has allowed us to build a project website and also easily integrate all of the digital mapping tools that are needed to collect, visualize, and share the data. And I'll talk you through some of those tools very quickly now. It's a bit of a whirlwind because this is quite a big product. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask afterwards. So first of all, as part of this project, we were recruiting lots of new volunteers and working with community groups. And so we've used ArcGIS story maps, which you've heard about earlier in the webinar. And they're a great way to communicate information around a particular topic. So we use story maps to introduce volunteers to the project and share some guidance and instructions. And they're great because they not only allow you to embed maps, but also share videos and files. So in this case, we shared some videos with an interactive introduction to the project, as well as sharing links to download paper field survey forms and some guidance on carrying out risk assessments and making sure that groups have public liability insurance in place. We also wanted to support community groups and help them to remain self-sufficient and autonomous so that they can manage their own volunteers and retain a certain level of ownership of their own data. So we used ArcGIS instant apps to build a simple web mapping application, again, with no coding required. And that allows community groups or organizations to add themselves to the map, and then new volunteers can find their litter picking groups near them. And also when they come to upload their data, they're able to tag their record with their community's name so that they can find it all easily and access it and download it later. So then when it came to actually uploading the data, we found that a lot of community groups actually opted to use paper survey forms in the field, primarily because when you're litter picking next to a river, it tends to be quite muddy and wet, and that's not a place that tends to be good for technology. But we still wanted volunteers to be able to upload their own data. So what we developed were some survey forms using ArcGIS Survey 123, which is an easy to use smart form builder. It's similar to Microsoft Forms, but has enhanced mapping capabilities, and it links in directly with all of the other Esri tools. And this allows the volunteers, as I said, to upload their own data directly to the database, which has reduced our admin burden. And it also helps to produce better quality data because you're not having to read somebody's scruffy handwriting. And on top of that, you can add in some quality assurance steps in the form to make sure that people are entering the data correctly. And this data can technically be uploaded either through the mobile app, or it can be uploaded through the web browser when they get home. And the mobile app is available to use offline without a mobile connection. So then it came to sharing the results, and being able to provide timely feedback to volunteers after they've uploaded their data is really important. They really want to see the impacts of their work and what they're contributing to. So to provide some of that, we used ArcGIS dashboards to create a map and some summary statistics. And dashboards are interactive, which means that people can actually filter the map and the data by their community name or by a survey site, which allows them to see their individual impact as well as the overall impact that the project's had so far. And finally, we wanted the data to be open and accessible. So we used the open data functionality within ArcGIS Hub to make sure that people could download it in multiple formats, including simple spreadsheets, as well as spatial GIS files, and also make it available via an application programming interface or an API for the more technical users, like university researchers. And this allows the data to be used by other stakeholders, so that has a much greater impact and reach than it would have if it was just the project partners. And by the end of our 3-year pilot project, our volunteers have recorded more than 1,000 cleanup events. They've categorized more than 380,000 pieces of litter. And in total, they removed more than 5,500 rubbish bags of litter from our rivers, which is equivalent to more than 41,000 kilograms. And that weight estimate and those volumes didn't even include any of the large items that were removed, like shopping trolleys and car tires. So what's next? Our database continues to grow, so many groups are still contributing data even after the project ended, and there's a real appetite to continue that work. We're also rolling out the method across more river catchments and seeking funding to continue supporting the database and litter picking groups. We also have a wider programme at the Rivers Trust where we're working on developing a standardised framework for all freshwater citizen science. And we'll be exploring how to maximise the impact of the data, not just for plastic pollution, but all of the other sources of pollution as well. And that's it from me. So thank you very much. You can find out more about the Rivers Trust and see many other examples of how we've used ArcGIS software on our website. And I'll hand you back to Hattie.
Lovely. Thank you, Annika. Okay, I'll just take the screen back. There we go. Okay, hopefully that's coming through. So yes, that's given us all a bit of a whistle-stop tour through 4 really great presentations. So a really big thank you to all of our speakers for preparing their insightful sessions. It really is, I have to say, a pleasure from myself, to hear about what they're doing with the technology and also to work alongside them as well with a whole host of other Esri staff as well. But yes, it's very good to have some good news stories to share with the audience. So as you've seen, to wrap up, digital mapping tools can be used by a variety of individuals to help achieve a lot of different nonprofit missions. Not everyone is doing the same thing. And what we hope we were trying to get across today is just a bit of an insight, a starter, that a map-based approach to your work can be suitable when location is at the heart of what you're doing. And so maps can act as that wonderful common language between people to understand issues. So as you'll see on screen, there are 3 key takeaways I would like to leave you all with before we move to a Q&A. Number 1, digital mapping can help your organization in an infinite number of ways. It really is only limited to your own imagination. But firstly, do remember, you've got communicating your cause. Think of what Fauna and Flora did with story maps, understanding your community. Think about the work that the Scouts and Oliver did there. Acting on your mission. So think of Sightsavers in the field with those mobile field apps, looking at tracking that prevalence of trachoma. And then fourthly, that idea of measuring your impact and reporting to stakeholders. And the Rivers Trust, I think, gave us a really good example of how they do that with the tools. My second takeaway is that maps can really be that tangible difference to your work. So they really are a digital twin of the real world. And when we update them, it helps us to track progress towards whatever mission we are working towards. So, monitoring tree planting to combat climate change, or perhaps plotting evacuation routes for refugees. Finally, onto the third point, do remember that Esri's nonprofit program really is there to break down those barriers and make access to these tools as easy as possible. So please do come to us and have a conversation, have a chat, and we'll be really, open and looking forward to those conversations. I mentioned that the discount can be about 99%. And I know we've had some questions just coming in as well. And to give you a rough idea of what that is, it's about £146 to £149 per person per license for a 12-month subscription. So yes, hopefully those kind of rough costs there give you a little idea of what that can do for you. But do come and have a chat to us and we can talk more about the software. So on to a final note. Thank you for listening. Big thank you again to our speakers, and indeed Charity Digital, of course, for hosting us. If you've been inspired by these stories, as I've said a million times already, please do come and have a chat to us, and maybe we can answer some more of the questions in the Q&A with the time remaining. One last thing from me, the QR code on the screen is going to take you to that more information page on our nonprofit program and the application form. So if you've got a mobile phone and you've got the camera on the mobile phone, just hold it up to that QR code in the middle, the kind of fuzzy black and white square. Your camera should recognize the QR code and hopefully provide you a nice magic jump across to the URL, the website there, but the links are also in the chat window. So now I think we're going over to Tara to host the Q&A.
Sure. Thank you, Hattie, and thank you very much to all of our panelists. I found that absolutely fascinating. And yeah, we'll move on to the Q&A. We only have around 5 minutes left, but we'll get through as many questions as we can. And Any others that are left unanswered will be shared with the team to answer offline. So we will get back to you on those. So Hattie, the first question is, we would like to map historical data using addresses which have no postcodes attached and may be in different countries. How can we map this without the labour of finding and adding the postcodes?
Yeah, I saw that one come in, and it's a really good question. I see that the devil's always in the detail of the data itself, so it's probably something I'd look to have a more in-depth conversation rather than provide an answer exactly for. But yeah, I mean, in terms of what this mapping software does at its heart, it's all about taking your location data and turning it into dots on a map, lines on a map, or areas on a map. So if you haven't got that kind of postcode, for example, to address-based data, you might have other reference points for that data. So, X and Y, or, latitude, longitude. But again, if you haven't got any references like that, if you're not wanting to start from scratch, manually be pinning your dots on the map itself, there are other locators out there that might pick up references in your data that have recognizable names. But yeah, it really is down to the data. So I might have to take that one offline and invite whoever it was to pose the question to have a chat with us, and we can have a look at the data.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Hattie. Next question I'll move on to is, how is the data captured and inputted to create the digital map? Can a CRM be linked to create the reports/maps?
Yeah, really good question again. I'll break it into two halves. The second bit about the CRM integration. Yes, we have got an area of our software that will integrate with, those external bases. We've got different deployment models, but yes, the CRM can be plugged in. The second area of that was kind of, how do you start by inputting data? And again, it can be done in many ways. A simple thing might be to have an Excel spreadsheet of data, for example, things that have got addresses next to them, or Latin long, and you basically geocode that spreadsheet, which turns it into those magical dots on a map, for example. So that's one way of inputting and turning, a spreadsheet of data onto dots on a map. But you might do something like Alex showed from Sightsavers, where, you're going out with an mobile application on your phone, and you're collecting data in real time. Annika showed a kind of similar thing with the rivers example as well. Wherever you are in the field, you could be filling in a survey and dropping a point essentially as to where you are, and then locate and then attribute all of the data that you're collecting against that location, attributing it to that point on a map. So you can kind of push the data in live from if you're doing field surveys. And yes, there's lots of other ways to kind of input data, but just perhaps two examples for the purpose of times right now.
Thanks so much, Hattie. And then we had another question where somebody asked if there will be more information shared on what digital mapping is and how it can be used by on different platforms for different size charities. Hattie, I was thinking perhaps if there's a resource that you can share in the chat on that, or if not, it's something that we can certainly send out in the post-webinar comms. So again, that one was anonymous, but we can certainly share something on that if that sounds okay, Hattie.
Yeah, absolutely perfect. Yeah, I know there's going to be some follow-up going onto the landing page on the website for this webinar. So there's going to be lots of resources upload there. And then I think the plan is to send some comms as well, which will have more resources. But again, come to us if you want free demos. We're more than happy to chat through those kind of things as well.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. Okay, so I think in terms of the questions, unfortunately, that is all we have time for today, because we do need to wrap up at 1 o'clock. But thank you again so much to Hattie, Oliver, Alex, Annika and Chelsea for joining us today. Once again, the session is being recorded and will be uploaded to watch on demand within a week's time, and the slides and resources will be made available to you by the end of the day. So again, please don't worry if you missed anything, and if you're able to share feedback with us, that would be fantastic and very much appreciated. If it hasn't been done so already, my colleague will be sharing a link in the chat, and you'll also receive a prompt just after you leave this page. So the final note I'll leave you on is that on the 21st of March, we are hosting, as in Charity Digital, we'll be hosting a fantastic series of in-person workshops with the aim of giving charities the tools and skills to tackle the most important challenges facing the sector in the coming year. The workshop's aim is to help you transform and thrive in 2024 within 4 key focus areas. So they will be fundraising, marketing, strategy and leadership. And artificial intelligence. And the event will be held in person at our Resource for London venue in North London. And we have shared a link in the chat for anyone who wishes to learn more and consider purchasing a ticket to join us on the day. So we really hope to see you there. And thank you again so much for joining us today, and goodbye for now.